How are you?
I'm good. Is that open now?
Yeah, I can see you. Yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah, that's a gorgeous head of yours.
You look really fit, mate. You look a bit slimmer.
Yeah, I'm actually heavy. So I sort of spent the first part before Chrissy at about 101, trying to put a bit of weight on, but I was very lean and running really well. And then, naturally just started trying to eat a little bit more and eat more often, more regularly. And I'll come back. I was nearly getting a bit obsessed with it. So I stopped weighing myself and stopped looking at it. And then I'll come back and be about 103 now. So I've actually put on a couple of kilos, but I'm feeling pretty good.
Being in Canberra, I thought you'd either have a big jumper on and a woolly hat, or you'd have a singlet on because it'd be too hot or too cold. What's the weather report?
Yeah, so today it's been both. It's been too hot, then it's rained, and now it's too hot again. So
yeah, what's it like being at a new club for you? I mean, you spent most of your life at the Dogs. What's it like being at a new club?
Yeah, it's really exciting. Like I've always loved having, that last week of your off season, knowing that you're going to pre-season and going back in, and whether it was at the Bulldogs or even back to my school days, being back at school holidays back in Tathra, and knowing I was going back to St. Greg's and I was going to be around my teammates again. But I think going to a new club, it's been even more exciting for me this year. And I knew a few of the boys, and I got to know a few of them pretty well up on the Gold Coast. We're in the same hub when they relocated the comp this year. So, that sort of broke the ice for me really early, and it's been a really easy transition for me.
Yeah, good. Mate, there's somebody who's been a thread in all your rugby league life, really, and would have been instrumental in bringing you to Canberra, who's no longer with us anymore as well. Like, he changed my life, did Pete Mulholland, and I've no doubt you've got plenty of nice things to say about the poor fella as well. Yeah,
it was, I suppose we all knew that he was quite sick and knew that, death's imminent, but it was still very sad news for, I think, everyone that's had something to do with him, because, whether it was a year or 2 years or 10 years, he's made impact in so many footballers' lives, and even your life as a coach. And coming from Tathra, he made it so easy for me to go to St. Greg's, and he made it, made the transition for me as a country boy to live in the city, and then to get me down here. And we had some really good and sort of deep, reflective chats, particularly in the last sort of 3 or 4 months. I was just so excited to get down here and see him. And it's really sad that I didn't get to spend much time with him. Didn't get to spend much time with him.
Did you get to see him before?
Mate, I didn't. That was there. So the week I got here, he'd been taken back into hospital and they, I think things had escalated and he was quite sick again. And that last sort of period was just about him seeing his family. So it was quite hard.
He lost his dad quite close to the end of his life too. I mean, when you're sick like that and then you take another whack like that, I mean, it just...
Yeah, that's right. You're heartbroken and you're sick and you're fighting everything at the same time. And yeah, I couldn't imagine it, but he's one of those. He's got a young fella too, so
some people don't really age, even though he was mid-60s, I think he was. Some people don't really age. They might look a bit older, but they've got a young outlook and everything. And it's very hard to think Pete Mulholland not with us anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I noticed that heaps during my negotiation. So, like you said, he's mid-60s. He was still taking the absolute piss out of me and my manager. We'd be in the middle of a serious negotiation, phone call, Zoom chat, whatever it was, trying to get certain details over the line or whatever. And he'd pull a joke out or he'd pull something out of his ass. And you just knew that was Pete. And like you said, he hadn't aged. He's still that young footy mind, and he was so keen to get me down here and play footy for the Raiders.
Yeah. There's something I want to say while we're recording now. And I mean, some people who don't understand you, I've known you and we've always kept in touch, even though we've not lived in the same postcode. I've known you for well over a decade now. And there's some people out there, mate, that pass judgment on you and things that have happened and all that. The Adam Elliott I know, mate, has got a massive heart. I always think that, when somebody ends up in a bit of trouble in life or whatever it is, well, if it's a criminal case in court, they always take what's happened in terms of a bad thing and then they balance it out with what good they do in the community and everything else. And I think that the good that you've done in the community and the person you are and the size of your heart and all that completely outweighs any misdemeanors that you may have done. And I just want to say, I normally save the nice stuff like this towards the end of a chat, but mate, anybody who's watching this interview now, they're going to see the best out of you now, aren't they? Like you're probably in your physical peak. I firmly believe you've not played your best football yet. I mean, you've got that many skills that you've probably ended up in. I want to say it in such a nice way, but you've been in a team that's not really allowed those skills to flourish all the time, and chopped and changed position in the back row a little bit and the like. And mate, with a new start and everything, and certain things behind you, I'm predicting. And I also saw the Rugby League Guru online also predicted that this is your year too. So, mate, just make sure you know when you're carting that ball up or making a tackle that you've certainly got my support, and I'll come in third man metaphorically and finish them off.
No, thank you, my mate. It's it always makes me smile when I see your name pop up on my phone, and it's like you said, we're not in the same postcode or whatnot, but we've known each other for a very long time and had some really good times together. So it does mean a lot when something might be going wrong, or the best me mightn't be being reflected in the media or whatnot, and I get a message from you. It definitely pops me up, and there's a handful of people in your life that have that usually make a big impact in your life, and you did that for me, from a very young age. And I hope I get the chance to sort of share a few of those stories throughout this interview. But there was things, being a young, raw sort of country boy that just loved sport and loved having fun more than anything. You helped sharpen a lot of those things and helped me become an NRL player. Well,
you were as a kid. Well, you were a big thing, but you were also full of energy, full of enthusiasm, always happy. I've never really known you to be that grumpy, but you were never in trouble from memory. I mean, you lived in boarding and you also went to school, obviously, and your rap sheet was next to nothing. It might have even been nothing.
Yeah, so, I'll say it to people now. I wish, it's in hindsight, but I wish I was a bit more of a rat bag when I was growing up, because I might have got it out of my system before I would have made headlines. But it's I was the boarding school captain there at St Greg's, and
that's right, you're a leader. You're a leader.
Had that stuff, and I was really proud of it. But like you said just before, it's that is behind me, and I really think that with my off field at the moment and how happy I am, and Millie definitely brings the best out of me in a person. I'm closer to my family being here in Canberra. I love footy. I've always loved footy, but I think I actually love my life off the field now, and I think it's going to be a big piece of the puzzle for me this year.
How old are you now?
27.
Perfect. Turning 28 this year, or?
No, 27. So turning 28 after the season. Yeah. So
okay. So that kid that came from Tarfra, what did you think when you first walked into St Greg's?
Yeah, I couldn't believe the school was bigger than my hometown. So that was a start.
How did it all come about? How did it all come about for you?
Yeah, so Peter Mulholland. So Mum and Dad they just knew it was part of the package. They knew that, coming from Tarfra, there's no way you can sort of live out your childhood dream of playing in the NRL or playing, at that time it was all playing cricket for Australia or whatever it was, while staying in Tarfra. So they knew that I'd eventually have to move to Sydney or somewhere like that. But they didn't really want me coming up and, I suppose living on my own and maybe becoming a bit of a rat bag and not taking school seriously and all that sort of stuff. And they spoke to Peter Mulholland, who was the recruitment officer at the Bulldogs at the time, and he said, "Well, I've got the perfect place for him, and we can work things to help you guys out financially to get him there." And that's how St Greg's come about. I remember going and doing an interview. I actually played before it. I'd actually played a cricket carnival for New South Wales cricket at St Greg's, and I remember being there and just going, "Man, Dad," just looking at each other. Dad's from Dubbo, lived in Tarfra and Bega, pretty much his whole life. I'd lived in Tarfra my whole life. And we're looking at each other going, "Can you believe this is a school? Like, they've got more ovals in this school than we do in our entire valley." Like, we were blown away. So when Peter mentioned that potentially I could be going to St Greg's, we all jumped at it. And it was, a big family decision. And they've been my biggest supporters from day one. But it was, between Mum, Dad and Peter Mulholland, that's what got me to St Greg's.
Wait, did Peter Mulholland himself find you, or was it one of his scouts that tipped him in? Can you remember the day?
Yeah, it was him himself. I remember the day, came up to me, and I just had the Raiders recruitment officer come up to me.
Did you say, "I'll see you in 12 years"?
Yeah, I know. Mate, seriously. I was a Bulldogs fan growing up. That was simply what it was. Dad said, "There's no way we're getting you to sign with the Raiders," because they would have loved me to go to Canberra. It's half the distance to home and whatnot. But Dad just looked at me and said, "There's no way we're getting you to sign with Canberra now."
And were you playing club or rep? Or
I was playing. I think I was a year young, trialling for the New South Wales under-15 side, so it was school footy. So when you're a country boy, you the best way to be picked up is through school footy, because you if you go good enough and you make enough teams, you make it high enough, then you actually start playing in Sydney and Wollongong and all those. And that's where the junior recruitment officers and the player managers and whatnot are. And it's a great pathway. I feel so lucky that just through playing footy with me mates and at school, I was able to, eventually make those teams and be picked up.
Did you have like many rep accolades, 11s, 12s, 13s? Like, were you always making rep teams for rugby league or?
Yeah, it was. So I'd played the New South Wales PWSA side. I go through a couple of names actually. That was Mitchell Moses, Luke Brooks, Jack Bird, myself.
There you go.
Kalepi Tanganoa. There's a few more. So there's 5 or 6 in that under 12 side. Jamil Hopewadi, that have kicked on to play in the NRL. And and I think that sort of core group of us, we ended up playing 12s, 15s, opens, and then even our under 20s origin side had a few boys from that age group still in it. So
yeah. So let's picture you back at Greg's. I actually first heard about you as a cricketer.
That would be
Mr.
right.
Knorr, Steve Knorr, was adamant that you could have gone in any direction. Tell us about your little cricket expertise.
Yeah, so I think I was, as a young fella, I could bowl really fast. I knew from the age of about 11, I was bowling as fast as the men back home, and I was playing men's cricket by the time I was 12, and I did love it. But I never bowled really fast, but they were you wouldn't know where they were going. I didn't know where they were going. I remember a few times I actually got taken off the bowling attack because I bowled 3 beamers in a session, so 3 full tosses over hit height, and I'd been put off the attack because it was always just a hobby and a love of sport for me. Whereas rugby league was a passion, and I would be down at the Oval trying to get better at rugby league. Yeah. Whereas with cricket, I probably I might have had I actually might have been better if I look at it. I'm a bit stubborn. I'd like to say I was better at football, but I was probably better at cricket, particularly as a young fella. But I just didn't have that passion, and I sort of knew that. I would have always regretted not playing.
There's something about you that I couldn't imagine standing in the field for a day and a half, waiting to have a bat. Or you just you just want to do something. Do you still watch it though? Do you still like cricket?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So being an Indigenous fella, what does somebody like Scott Boland doing? What he's done in the last couple of weeks?
Mate, I don't know him from a bar of soap, obviously, but that proud. As an Aussie and as a black fella, for him to, at the age that he is, not give up, come up, biggest stage, and just tear it up like
and how humble he is. Like, he gets dead shy. He's like this when people are patting him on the back. He's got his head down and he's like,
it's insane. It's so great to see someone like that. If I got 6 for 7, I don't think I would have had my head down in the huddle. I think I probably would have been sending some people back to the sheds. But I think.
Mate, if things might have gone in another direction, he might have been the 3rd Indigenous player to play for Australia, not the 2nd one. Yeah. So you're at Greg's. You've started and you've come to my team. You came at year 11, didn't you?
Yeah.
I remember looking at my squad thinking, well, I might need something. And then Pete Mulholland must have heard my prayers or something. Because the year before I'd had Teddy. I had Teddy at 6, Grote at prop. Couple of others that were, again, real solid players. We were talking before we recorded about the need to have a squad full of people who just fill holes as much as stars.
Yeah.
And we'd beaten everybody in the MCS and got quite close in the national comp the year before. It was pretty obvious to anybody who knew what was going on that it was going to get harder the year after. Anyway, this big, lanky, boisterous fella turns up. I said, "Hi, I'm Adam." What do you remember about all that time at the starting?
Yeah, I remember. So obviously, come from the country, you play every position, and I remember rocking up, and probably the first thing that sticks out to me is you said, "What position do you want to play for us?" And I said 5'8", and you said, "You'll be playing lock," and you said you'll be in the forward pack. You're a big unit, blah blah. And I thought, but I remember you said, "But we can use your skills to play in the." It still doesn't mean that you can't use your skill.
Yeah.
And I remember being, a little bit starstruck, I suppose, just like I said, by the facilities and just the bigness of St. Greg's and how important. Like, there was blokes that had gone to that school from the age of 12, and their biggest goal in life was to play first 13 for St. Greg's. That was that was all they ever wanted. And here I was, not being cocky or full of myself, knowing that I was probably going to play I was going there to pretty much for school, but to play some better footy. And it sort of was like, right, well, there's an importance behind this. I better not take this for granted, because before training, I'd had met a few of the boarders and they said, oh, well, we heard you're pretty good at footy. Oh, I've been here since I was in year 7. All I want is to play. I just want a game of first 13. And for me, it was just the history of the place was obvious straight away. And how much, particularly the fellas in boarding, how much it meant to them to play rugby league.
Do you remember your first few training sessions? I mean, were they a bit of a culture shock to you in any way, or did you just
definitely. They definitely were. I think one of your biggest sayings that I've taken on is you don't get better at playing rugby league unless you play rugby league. And a lot of our trainings were opposed, whether that was early mornings before we had breakfast. And up until that point in my life, I'd never done opposed. I'd sort of gone unopposed, or I'd done some little drills, and I'd never done it. So, you go from never doing it and playing a game on the weekend to sort of nearly playing 2 or 3 games of training during the week. And I could tell how much better I was getting so quickly already, just through the different styles of training. And then just the breakdown of individual skills. So, and I'm saying it a lot, but reflecting on coming from a country town, you make a good tackle or you throw a good pass, and you've made a good tackle, you don't know why. You don't know what's made you do that. Yeah. Whereas, and I in high school, I don't know how many coaches are this technical, but you broke it down to the second in video sessions. And this was as soon as I got there, my tackle tech was off, and I had my steps were too big, and I needed to shorten my feet up. I was actually realising when I made a good tackle why I'd made it, and when I made a bad tackle or I missed a tackle why I'd missed it.
Because it might be your left shoulder versus your right shoulder, or
that's right. And before that, I suppose the effort or enthusiasm that I'd always had as a kid probably masked any of those technical details that I didn't have in my game, and just natural ability and raw strength as a young fella. But when you get in those bigger areas, bigger arenas, you do need to have the technique and the detail down pat. And that's when I think I fell in. St. Greg's definitely made me be a student of the game, more so than anything. And how funny is it? I was 16 at that time, and look how much I'd picked up. That was my first month at training there. Yeah,
and the difference between school and I suppose any club, is that unlike NRL or Rep, Matthews, Ball, Flegg, there's more chance that you'll be back in that team the week after if you do something wrong. So it was never really an issue for you. But many of the players, they got that. I always say it's like a tough school, a school of rugby league that's, if you like, a school of hard knocks. Like, you get tough coaching, but ultimately it's in a blanket of support, because most of the players are back in the team next week. And also, you're not, your place isn't under that much pressure. Also, I do believe as well, one of the reasons that school was so memorable for so many people is because you are bringing up, number one, you're playing with people that you spend all day, every day with, right? So they're your close friends. Number two, there'd be some players that you were training with whose standards would have just risen just by having players like you, and the year before, Matthew Grote, James Tedesco, and whoever else, Billy Kitt, James Look. They would grow just because they were in that environment. And I think it was always good to turn around and see that. The big thing I got from being at Greg's was helping people achieve what they didn't think possible.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like we said, those kids that came from one-horse towns and whatever, and their whole life, they thought, I'll never be a first grader at this school. I'm not good enough. And there's that many people that we turned into first graders, wasn't there? In our,
I think one thing about St. Greg's, it's like an aura around the place. It's like an unspoken sort of elixir about St. Gregory, like a potion. Yeah. And I do think if you pull on that St. Greg's jersey, it sounds really cliche, and you get an extra 10% out of yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
You have to. It's a bit like, I'm trying to think of other sporting examples, but it's like playing for Liverpool at Anfield, or Manchester United at Old Trafford, or I'd like to say City at the Etihad, but they sometimes lose some games, even though they're very good. But, the All Blacks, playing on the All Blacks jersey, like St. Greg's would be one of the schools that has the biggest pull in that regard. And I think it probably still does to this day, listening to some of the stories and reading some of the stuff on social media. The other thing you mentioned was technicality. I mean, let's put this into some kind of context, mate. Like the year you played for St. Greg's the first year, as that 16-year-old, we were competing against Blacktown with people like Johnny Asiata, Bryce Cartwright, Matthew Lodge, one of the Jennings boys, I think it was George. I mean, we could go on and go on and go on. Like there was,
John Flair, like that. Yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah. Players there.
It was like a mini NRL.
Leilani Latu,
yes,
who was 6'4" at the time. Like,
yeah,
they were stacked.
Yeah, and so it's a great, like you say. I'm glad you recognise that. It's a really good breeding ground for it. There's a try. I've got the picture here, mate, from the grand final that we won that year. Have you got that at home at all?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've got it.
All right. You heard about Brett Ito, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Mate, I look a bit younger and healthier on this picture. So does Mr. Nelson. Mate, there's some players that on here that some people will never hear of.
Yeah.
Like Simon Mcfadyen was an AFL player.
Yeah.
We stuck him on the wing. He used to catch the ball up there like that. But he was a solid first grader for 2 years. He's now doing some cryptocurrency. I always talk about Corey White as being a bit unlucky when it comes to dishing out the professional contracts and the like.
Like I don't know how he didn't at least get a foot in the door by playing under 20s.
Yes, absolutely. That's a time when people were recruiting.
Cannot believe. That's so hard to believe.
I'm just going to go through the players that actually played in this game because there's that many people in the picture. We'll be here for 5 hours. Taylor Brown, he did well. I mean, he kicked on that year and then he went to
Dragons,
and then ended up in the Queensland Cup. He played a fair bit for Redcliffe.
Yeah, he did.
He did really well. Boy Elliott, I don't even know if he played rugby league after he left St. Greg's, and he's one of those examples of the kind of kid that would really thrive at being a St. Greg's player. Nick Walker, who I thought was excellent.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that you were talking about when you say you need a few stars in your team. He was he was our star. He was always my centre. I was the back row. He was my centre, and there was times I'd just be able to give him the ball, and he'd be able to pull something out for us.
Yeah, one of the tries was exactly that. Because we used to do loads of 3v2s
all the time.
Yep. Tylan Tarnavasa,
very talented
good player.
Could play wing or front row.
Ben Hughes, playing Union now at a good level, playing in Japan, I believe.
Yeah.
He stepped up that year. Luke Williamson, Billy Kitt.
Yeah, probably the best 17-year-old halfback you could get. Had a 40-year-old footy brain, didn't he?
Really suffered, I think, from poor management by certain people.
Yeah,
I'll name no names, but having his tyres pumped up and the like.
Yeah.
Great. Mate, we used to sit together and just watch football. He'd know enough about it. Yeah. Going back to Luke Williams, do you remember how light our front row was?
Yeah. Was it him and Zach McCoy?
No, it was Luke Hickey. And we used to play away from the front row because Blacktown was 3 times bigger than us in the middle. Zach Mackay's the next player I'm looking at. Zach scored a try in that final. We put a high bomb up. In fact, I think it was Billy Kitt or Christian Kagiasis. Put a high bomb up. George Jennings dropped it. Zach Mackay pounced. So the score, we were actually down at half-time 10-6.
That's right.
Or 10-4. It was at Parramatta Stadium. And coming out the sheds, we scored 2 tries in like 4 minutes. Real quick time. The second try was when you went down the left and gave the ball. Billy Kitt went down the short side, gave the ball, give it to Nick.
Yep.
And Nick put Toby Croker away.
Yep.
I've mentioned Luke Hickey already, Christian Kagiasis. Toby Croker, great surname. I mean, he should be a rugby league player. Sabir El Haj.
Mate, he actually was signed with the Dragons, I think, at the time too, wasn't he?
Yeah. And none of these players would have got anything if it wasn't for St. Greg's.
No.
The way we played those 2 years.
Yeah.
And then the last one who I think was real glue who held it together that year was James Love.
Yeah, love him. And he's gone on to played under 20s, did his 2 ACLs, and then went back out to play footy in the country. But he's a top line sort of country rugby league player now. Gets the Group 9 Player of the Year, and plays for Gundagai out there. And I think is a bit of a class above someone that was probably really unlucky with.
And do you remember you said the conversation? I'm a 5'8", and I said no, you'd be playing lock. Well, if you actually look at this team, Oh, I missed out Reece Norman. Reece Norman was a hooker.
Yep.
Buffy ended up. He might have even started in the bench in these games. I think I might have interchanged him with. Not that Luffy was a bench player. It's just that I brought him on the bench to stay on.
Yeah.
And then you had Billy Kit and Christian Tagiasis. You actually had 4 players in there that were pivots, for want of a better term, ball handlers. I think you define players as ball handlers and ball runners, and you blessed with both, basically. But I think your first instinct is always to run, whereas other players, their first instinct is to pass, whereas you can run and then pass. That's one of the reasons I would have put you at lock, or I had to play your second role that year, left edge.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Left edge. But they were great times, and that got us back to back. That year, did you make your Australian schoolboys debut that year too?
Yeah, so I got picked in the schoolboys that year. The first year I was at Greg's, and then did my ACL in the in the semi against Matraville Sports High.
That's right.
Yeah, and we were we were going all right against them as well.
I know. I remember that now. Nice sunny day. Sunny day. Funnily enough, the coach at Matraville that day, he's been coaching up at Redcliffe up here, and I've coached against him a couple of times since. So we're good friends. Right. And he's now the Queensland Cup coach at Redcliffe Dolphins. Lovely fella. And yeah, you're right. That turned everything that day. And then you didn't get back on the field, did you, till about the middle of the year after? Yeah,
it was pretty much 9 months for me because I was so young. I think it was around that maybe end of April, May, and we I came back just before the Australian schoolboy trials again, and then played it the second year finally.
I remember you being injured. In these interviews, I often talk to players. I've interviewed Teddy at the weekend. He was talking about how he dealt with his injury. Gutho told a few stories. I can tell your story, mate. You trained twice as hard. You were always in the gym. You didn't bat an eyelid. You just went straight into it. You were. I mean, if you're talking to kids now and they're going to deal with setbacks, I mean, it feels sometimes kids these days they think getting a bad text from their girlfriend or boyfriend is a real big setback. But, a setback like that where you've come for your dream, what would your tip for kids be and how you dealt with it? Because I can promise you dealt with it well. I remember.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing at that time was I get emotional. I grew up with an older brother that had autism, and
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, the biggest thing that from the earliest memories I have, something went wrong in my life, I'd go to mum and have a whinge about it. Not so much dad, always mum, and without being politically incorrect or however people will put it. And it wasn't even tough love. She'd just say, well, it's not the end of the world. Your brother's got autism, and you can play footy with your mates and you can go and do this. And I remember speaking to mum and dad after that, and they said, well, how about you do it for your brother? And, it's so funny. Like I said before, I was only 16, but I felt like I had a bit of the weight of Tathra on my shoulders. Like my hometown was so heavily behind me. And I thought, well, you know what? There's only 2 ways about this, and there always is. And you can probably sit there and kick stones for maybe 2 or 3 days, but sooner or later, I think the only thing that gets you out of hard times is hard work.
You either curl up in the corner or you get up and fight, don't you? That's the reality of it with anything.
Yeah.
Big memories of those 2 years, then 2011, 2012. What? When you're telling your children when they're older, what are you telling them about your 2 years at Greg?
I want them to go there, mate. Honestly, I'd love them to. The friendships, first and foremost. People ask me what it was like going to boarding school, and I just say, imagine being with your best friends 24 hours of the day for 2 years. Like I was there for year 11 and 12. Now the best 2 years of my life. And then on top of that, if you play sport, and rugby league was my dream, I get to have my best mates that I go to school with every day. Then I get to go play footy with them, and it's just like you just become a family. And Billy Kit, some of the we catch up, we have some laughs here and there over social media, and I sort of spoke about being a bit of a goody two shoes when I was at St Greg's, but some of the things that we could get up to in the boarding house, it wasn't too bad, and it was
were being boys,
boys were being boys, mate, and it was just. You do it to each other, and you'd get to training that afternoon after a big day of school or whatever, and you'd find out who it was that got you, and it was just a good get. And I think not taking life too seriously while we were there as well was a big thing for us, and humility was always a big thing spoken about at St Greg's. We never really had anyone with a big ego or that was too full of themselves. And I think a few of the trips away, I think particularly the one, we went to Farah one.
Second year we went to Farah, First year we went to Erindale.
That's right. We come down here.
My dad was with us.
That's right. He was too, mate. That was
on the kangaroos, on the search for kangaroos on the bus.
Oh, yeah, mate. Honestly, just the friendships and just on the field, I became a professional at St. Greg's, but I also learned how to study at St. Greg's. Before then, my whole life was surfing and playing footy and playing cricket and going to school and not being, I knew I had some brains, but I never really applied myself too much because I didn't have a choice at St. Greg's. And it was a big thing for playing foot. Like, you were big on it. If you weren't disciplined at school, it would potentially jeopardise your chances of playing footy.
The school just had great discipline as a whole, really. I mean,
it did.
The teachers sometimes used to complain about a drop in discipline. Honestly, they want to try working in a state school or a public school, and then
and that's where I've just come from.
Yeah. So you've done your 2 years at Greg's, and then you pull on that Australian jersey. Tell us about your Australian schoolboy experience when you finally got to pull the jersey on.
Yeah, it was definitely emotional. I remember being in the AIS and Peter Denham was the coach. He was the coach the previous year that had picked me as well. And I was only 16 when he picked me the year before. And I got to the trials. I remember it was probably only my third or fourth game back playing for New South Wales. And I'd played a couple of good games and he come over and said, you penciled in, just make sure you go all right in this final. And then we got to the AIS and we were in camp and he come up to me and he told me, I'm going to make you captain for us. And, like we just said, it was a lot of hard work, even as a young fella. I was waking up early, going to the gym. I was doing my rehab. I was getting on the train from Campbelltown to go to Belmore.
Well, Adam, I was the MCS 18s coach that year, and I've got the picture
you
of
were.
the pot. You weren't in that team, were you? You got straight through to New South Wales. Yeah. So even that would have been. I know there'll be other people who go, "Oh, geez, you got picked," but there's another side of it to the kid who's got the injury. He's worried he will miss out because he's got an injury.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did not trial because I thought I was too good and didn't need to trial. I was doing everything I could to get back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, if you'd have played in that MCS team, we'd have won that competition. We'd have won every game by 80, I think. That team was stacked. There was Bryce Cartwright in it, Dallin. Dallin was telling me the other day he turned down Aussie schoolboys, I think, the year after to go to pursue the New Zealand option. Mitch Moses. Luke Brooks wasn't in the MTS team, and I cop a lot for this. But he didn't trial properly or something. He didn't train or trial, so I wanted to be so fair to everyone.
Yep.
But I'd never pick favourites. Never.
Yeah, no way, yeah.
I knew that I had to teach a kid some... everything you do as a coach or teacher to 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, I mean, you've just done it. You've rattled off so many things that impacted you. You do change lives, and no doubt some people are watching this thinking, you changed mine, you dropped into second grade, Lee, or whatever. But you've got to be cognizant of that. And I remember with Brooks, who I've got nothing against personally, don't get me wrong, and great footballer who I feel has been much maligned and he's actually really good. But he didn't trial or train or something, and he ended up going via the president's route. So fair play, but he got to that team with Nick Moses. Who else was in that year? Mate, I tell you who was a great player that year. Brad Dietz. Yeah,
Brad Dietz. He ended up playing with... I played with him at the Bulldogs. Ended up playing...
Did he play for Aussie Schoolboys that year or not?
Played Aussie Schoolboys that year, yep. We had Paul Simona. Oh. He would have been in the MCS.
Yeah.
Unstoppable. John Flower.
Yes.
Chris Smith.
Yes.
Waffle Lavaka.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you play against England?
We played against England 2 test matches. The first one
Australia.
In Canberra. Yep, both in Australia. The first one in Canberra, and I was lucky because obviously everyone from Tathra came. I think I had about 40 people at the game. And
did you win them both?
Won them both by about 30 or 40. I had very convincing wins. Luke Brooks and Mitchell Moses were just like, you could watch that game and go, they'll play NRL very, very soon.
What were them games like in terms of intensity for you back then? I mean, it's as tough as it gets, isn't it, when you're that age?
They were definitely the most intense games. Like going from that to under 20s was almost a step down. Like playing against England, and when you play the English team, they're the under 19s academy as well.
Yeah, and they want to kill anybody in green and gold.
100%, mate. We played against John Bateman, Luke Curry, Luke Thompson was in that team.
Yeah.
Ryan Sutton, who's here at the Raiders, he was in that team.
Yeah.
And I remember John Bateman was the captain and I was the captain, and we're walking out and he's just into me, mate. And I'd never experienced it. I'd played in Tathra in a small country town. Then I'd played at St. Greg's. It was a Catholic school, and you didn't leap up at people, or you didn't really have those verbal battles. And he was just into me, into everyone. And we got out there. I remember my first tackle was a high tackle. I don't know if you remember, on a kick chase. We'd had our first set, kick down. I high tackled the winger. It was Burgess, I forget his name, the one that come over to play for the Roosters.
I always get mixed up with all the Burgesses. I've copped one of the Burgesses and I can't remember which one.
Yeah, too many. Anyway, I've high tackled him, and next thing there was 5 English blokes on top of me just throwing about me. And I remember talking to you about your days back in England, and I went, I think the big daddy was telling the truth.
Occasionally again, with rugby league break out amongst the fight.
Break out in a fight, mate. And that's how it was. It was battle.
I'm trying to put myself in your head as well. I mean, how do you prepare for a game like that? I mean, do you get nervous before you play rugby league? Do you think about the physicality of it? Or
I never did, and I never really have. I tell people all the time, I used to get more nervous. I was a bowler that batted religiously at number 11, and I would get more nervous to go out and bat in cricket than I ever did to go out and play footy.
Yeah, it's funny, yeah.
It's the big thing for me is keeping the excitement levels down, because I'm a very excitable person. As you know, I'm an out there personality, and I'm full on. Always got energy. So for me on game day, it's about making sure I don't burn that energy too early.
Yeah. So then you go through your under-20s journey and eventually to first grade. You made your debut in 2016. I've not forgotten about your brother. We're going to mention that right at the end. So I want people. That's the last thing I want everyone to remember about you and about all the work that you do there. But picture this, playing your first game at Telstra or whatever it was, and having maybe 20,000 watching you. Did that have any impact on you, good or bad?
Yeah, it did. And I think good. I think at the time I was lucky. I'd gone from boarding school into the Bulldogs house in at Belmore, which is a great setup.
Mate, that house, honestly, I still know kids that move there now.
Yep.
How many bedrooms has it got? Because I reckon 500 people have lived there in the last 10 years.
Easily,
honestly.
Mate, the family, the lady that runs it, Viv, and the family, they just do so well. They'll have 10 in there, probably 10 in there on average for the 12-month period of a year.
Yeah.
But at one time, she'll have 17 people there, and they go up and eat dinner with the family of 4.
Is it a good environment for a kid?
Great environment.
Yeah.
So you don't drink. You're not allowed to drink there. You're not allowed to have girls back there. It's good, mate. It's as a 18 and 19-year-old first, because it's for country boys or boys from New Zealand.
Yeah.
To move to Sydney and be put in that. And it sort of shows you, and Viv's big on it, the lady that runs it as well, that you haven't cracked it yet. You've still got a long way to go. And it sort of gives you a bit of
I don't know. And it's funny and it's really intriguing because the Dogs have obviously not really been a force to be that reckoned with over the last decade. But they're one of the only clubs that sort of does that, from what I can gather, has such a strong house that's part of the...
consistently for the last...
Everyone knows about the Dogs house.
Yeah.
And you lived in there for a bit, so you went from boarding to there. Okay, you're in the 20s. How did the 20s go for the couple of years you were in the 20s?
First year we lost the semi before the GF. Stack team, Dave Clemmer, Moses Mbye, Sonny Lange, Leilani Latu, like very stacked side. And then I think we were down 18-0. Then we got up 48-18. And then we lost 52-48. So that was the under-20s back in those days, if you'd remember. And then, going from there into the next season, we got the wooden spoon. And then that was 2014, and the first grade side made the grand final. So there was a pretty big buzz around Belmore, and James Graham had just come to Belmore, and he'd been there for maybe 12 months or so. And Josh Jackson and Dale Finucane had just made their debuts and had played first grade for a couple of years. And it was for me, being a 19-year-old at the time, it was like, I need to do whatever it takes to get in that team.
Did you debut under Des?
Yep.
What are your Des stories? Anybody who's been in Des's orbit, I always ask a Des story. Yeah,
I think, mate, a big one for me with Desi, he knew that I was always full of energy and so he knocked me back a few pegs here and there, but I think he realised pretty soon that it didn't faze me too much. And one day I thought this was potentially a bit of banter, and I sort of came back at him on the field and I would never do that now. I was just young and stupid. And I remember he finished what he said, and he walked over and he said, "Do that again, and I'll take you out the back of that toilet block over there, and I'll absolutely flog you." There was a bit of a laugh that followed it, but I also thought I think he's not serious there. Yeah, got to read the situation better next time, lads.
Yeah. Were you playing first grade? Was this after a first grade game?
That was in 2016 after I made me debut that year.
Yeah. Jeez, I could tell you some funny death stories, particularly from my time at Manly and everyone.
You had a couple of years at Manly.
Yeah, this could be the you could fill a few video things with that. Your first grade debut was against Manly.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Did you manage to get nervous for that one?
Mate, I actually got food poisoning. So I was vomiting and had everything going on during that game. We ended up winning 44-20, I think. So it was a pretty convincing win. But I do remember a lot of the boys sort of thinking that nerves had got the better of me because I was crook. And it was something that, in all honesty, it was like that was Everest, the peak of Everest for me getting the NRL.
Was it at Brookie or at Telstra?
It was at Brookie. And it was packed, mate. The hill was packed. And
would have been, yeah.
Yeah, both teams were going quite good at that stage. And getting on the big stage and not performing how I wanted to perform, whether it was because of illness or whatnot, but also sort of having people doubt me, thinking, I don't know if he actually.
What position were you?
I was coming off the bench to play second row.
And how did you find the hits, the speed?
Yeah, so
speed.
I just played a full season in New South Wales Cup, and I don't know. A lot of people say, it's a bit faster, but it's no more physical. Everything was a step up.
Yeah, okay. More
physical, faster. You got to make better decisions. You make one wrong decision, you get hurt for it. In reserve grade, maybe you can sort of hedge your bets a few times and make the wrong decision a couple of times, and someone will sort of cover you, or they won't. The opposition won't attack you where they probably could. But I remember on that game I slid out. Tommy Turbo must have been young. Might have been his first year playing that year, and I overslid on a little short ball and half. Got myself in a good enough position, but it was first grade and he got through, and I remember that plain as day. So I think.
What about the rule changes, the 6 again, and everything? How's that changed the way you approach rugby?
I think that helps me. I think that helps my body type. People that are a little bit faster and have a bit of a pass in their game, because I don't know, you look back to probably the early days when I'd made my debut, and maybe the 2012 period to 16, 17. Front rowers were, they could nearly get away with being 140 kilo and just going on there and getting a quick play the ball. But now, you needed them to generate your quick play the ball because the wrestle was so big. But now there's quick play the balls 3 or 4 times a set.
Yeah. Just because
of these rule changes. Yeah. So you need to be out. You need that aerobic capacity, and you need people on both sides of the footy. Obviously, need that aerobic capacity to defend set after set, but the teams like the Rabbitohs with Cody Walkers and those sort of blokes, and the Roosters with Teddy that are just on the ball all the time, Tommy Turbo, and then the forward packs, people like Cam Murray and Victor Radley and those fitter players, they never miss the jump. They're always there when the opportunity arises. I think that's the way the game's going. So, touch wood, I can stay fit and get fit this year, and I can start really attacking that ad line as well.
You've had a few knocks over the years. How's your body feeling in general? I mean, do you get out of bed normally, or do you have to?
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky, I think. A big influence on me and the way I prepare my body for games and for training is Josh Jackson.
Okay, tell us a bit about that.
Head and shoulders above anyone I've ever trained with when it comes to professionalism and what he does on a daily basis, whether we're training or not training, the routine that he sticks in. Like, he's borderline Navy SEAL sort of discipline when it comes to when he's out of bed, his stretching routine every day, what time he has his coffee, what time he has his second coffee, And he's got arthritis in his back, and he's the toughest bloke I've played with, and he's played through so many, games where he's been in enormous pain. So for me to see what he has to go through to be able to get his body on the field, it's rubbed off on me a little bit, and I feel like now I'm 27, I prepare 10 times better than I did when I was 21. I feel better now at 27 than I did at 21. My body.
And what does that look like? You've mentioned stretching. What else? So Teddy was saying he goes to see a masseuse twice a week, for example. Like what?
Yeah, and that's something as well. I realised with Jacko, where you start playing NRL and you start getting paid a bit better than the average Joe, well, then you should be able to afford to go and do a little bit more on your body than what the average Joe does. And it's on a bigger scale. But I remember reading that LeBron James, I think, spends $200,000 on his body each year.
Jeez.
So
I think I do in beer and food.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that's stress relief.
Yes.
So
I'm doing dry January, mate. I can lecture you now.
Yeah, nice. I could jump on that with you. I'm dry for January so far.
Nice. Well done. What about your diet and? Well, you said Josh Jackson timed his coffees and that. What's your approach to diet?
I'm pretty open.
Have a cheat day and all that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I don't necessarily have a cheat day. I don't weigh my food and I don't sort of count my macros and all that sort of stuff, like maybe your bodybuilders or your bigger boys that really need to do. But I do eat generally really healthily. I love cooking. Like I'm just lucky from a family of we just love cooking. So I love cooking food. For me, it's three meals a day. Is sort of like I'll have me poached eggs and avocado on toast, and then it's sort of meat and veg for the next 2 meals. And I stick pretty solid with that in a pretty decent routine with it. Millie's a really good cook, and she loves getting into it too, and she's playing footy as well. So I think the fact that we both can appreciate what we both need as well, it's helping. I feel like it's getting me in even better stead, in recent months.
Mate, I want to end this with, I said at the start, I did my end at the start where I said nice things about you. And one of the things I said about you was that the good that you've done outweighs any bad tenfold, right? 20-fold, 100-fold. One of the big things you've done throughout your career is fight the good fight for all. Tell us about that. Tell us about your brother's fight with autism and everything else.
Yeah, I think NRL players, we're just so lucky that we actually can reach a lot of different people, and I think I'm blessed. Some people might find it honey, but I'm blessed that I have a brother that's got autism because it's brought me up with a different perspective to what anyone, and you can't understand it unless you live it. And I think for me to have the reach that I have now, whether I'm fighting the fight for autism, whether it's raising money for charities or even just talking to other people that are siblings of someone with an intellectual disability, I think it's so important for me to use that to make my reach even wider and try and share that it's normal to be embarrassed, or it's normal to not completely understand your brother or your sister and what they're going through, or your son and your daughter, and just giving them as much love as you can give them is good enough. And I think, the way that my family's been, we've always tried to treat James as normal as we could, even though he's not, and there's certain triggers that set him off. And I think just having that perspective of, I think a bit of empathy for people that are going through the same thing that I've been through and my family's been through. And James has come such a long way, and we're so lucky with how much he's been able to fall into normal society now because of how far he's come. So for me, just to be able to give people, I suppose, a little bit of hope, raise a little bit of money here and there, and just to get in and around it. There's just something about them. They've got something really special about them. People with autism, each one of them has something that's extraordinary about them. For my brother, it's his brain and it's his memory. And you see some that are artists, or some that just they love cars and they remember number plates. So they're just incredible. Yeah. The ways that their brains work are incredible. So I love working with them in any context, any way that I can.
And how good are we as a society at understanding it, do you think?
Yeah, nowhere near where we need to be.
Yeah, okay.
I think people that have a big heart and people that are empathetic, like yourself, and maybe people that have had to experience it a bit themselves, but there's a lot of times over mine, not just other NRL players, but blokes that I went to school with or friends from back home, and I've had to chip them that it's not all right to take the mickey out of someone with an intellectual disability, because
30, 40 years ago, people understood it, and just took the mick out of that kid at school or whatever.
That's right. They didn't understand that they don't actually have a choice about that, and they don't understand that what the family and the siblings and the parents have to go through on a daily basis for them to operate in normal society. So I think it's definitely getting better, and I think the more people that are involved in the NRL, the cricket, the AFL or whatever, they get around different charities and just the awareness of it. I think the awareness, that's probably the biggest thing. Like fundraising, it's incredible, and you need that. Everyone needs more money for research and facilitating different needs, but just having the reach and the awareness to the broader society of, there's certain things that do tick these people off and make their life really hard. And if we know what they are and can identify what they are, maybe we can make their lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, nice. Mate, you're going to have your best season this year. I can feel it in my bones.
Yeah.
If you don't have it this year, you'll have it the year after or the year after. I firmly believe, I've said this, the best football's yet to come. The other thing is, I say this to everyone, and anybody who's watched everyone of these interviews, I'm really proud of the bloke that you've turned into from the boy that I met. So, and I keep an eye on you all the time, as you know. So, keep going, lad.
Appreciate that.
Thanks so much for your
Thanks
time.
so much for having me on. No, thanks so much for having me on. It's been great to chat to you.